But when we were back in school, Frederick, wasn't social studies like the course where everybody says you kill that with ease? That if you so I will be really interested to get a bit more in terms of the details as to why we're seeing this. Go on to Facebook, you find a bit of the statistics and the numbers that I'm running you through this morning as well, or YouTube where we're streaming, and be a part of it. And in the WASSCE again, more than half of the candidates failed core maths in the 2025 WASSCE, marking the worst performance in 7 years. Right? So more than half failed WASSCE, failed the core maths.
You can get it if you really want. You can get it if you really want. You can get it if you really want.
So there's a concern for parents, for persons who roots for educationists alike. Why have we seen what it is that we've seen play out? And I have seen bits and pieces of the social studies paper as well. I think yesterday I was shared in a group in which I was, and I mean, people were having very interesting conversations, asking the question whether or not the questions were so difficult that the students could not rise as the pupils, as the students, and it leaves me wondering really whether or not we've made progress, or this is just how do we even term this, right? So this is an irregular occurrence, and as such we should not attribute a lot of reasoning or meaning to this to say that there's a cause for concern, because in terms of the span of the free SHS, it's been relatively okay. It's been good. We don't get these staggering numbers in terms of failure, amongst many other things, until this year, where core maths in particular, more than half of the students have failed, and in social studies 1 in 4 were failing as well. It's brought us to this conversation again. What have we not done right that perhaps we should be going back to? Is one of the many things that we'll be seeking to get an answer to as well for you this morning.
You can get it if you really want.
3FM Sunrise.
we'll connect with him as well on the phone lines and get a bit more in terms of experts on the phone lines to begin to dissect what we have seen play out.
It's for the WASSCE 2025. We've indicated clearly in one of the statistics we put out that this is the performance of candidates in the published results, the core subjects. So if you look at the latter part of our statement, we still have some subject results of candidates from about 185 schools we are scrutinizing and investigating, so that if they are not found culpable, these figures may change. The performance in some of the subjects would go up based on what the outcome of the investigations would be. So I would say that for now, we shouldn't be too quick to conclude that this year has not been a very good year. All the other stories that are going around on social media, but generally, this is the performance of the candidates as the examiners.
So which subjects did they perform worse or badly or comparatively not too good?
Well, if you look at the statistics that we have, I think that so far for the published results, the lowest performance will be in core mathematics. The best performance for this particular year has been English language.
You said the best performance has been what?
English language.
All right. What happened to the science and social studies? I mean, what's the statistics like?
Well, if you look at social studies, obviously there's been a steep drop in terms of performance by candidates. We are still putting together the chief examiner's report. I called for it this morning, but it's not got to me yet. And in a casual conversation with my people in charge of social studies, I gathered that there was a little twist, if you want, of the question. Instead of the rote learning that we are used to, he asked them to apply the knowledge that they had, the various subjects. So, I mean, in that particular subject, the various topics.
That's John Kapi. Thankfully, he's joined us on the phone line this morning. Mr. Kapi, I appreciate you speaking to us this morning on the 3FM Sunrise. I trust that all is well, because I know from now till possibly when we have a full understanding of what's happened, your phone lines will be very, very busy.
Absolutely, you're right. I'm fine.
It's good. It's good to talk to you again. This results that we've seen help us begin to understand what it is that's played out. And so 1 in 4 failed social studies, over 50% failed math. Give us a bit more in terms of the details in summation from the 2025 WASSCE results.
I thank you, and good morning to your listeners. Basically, we have indicated clearly that the results that we have brought out are representative of the number that we have published so far. There are still a number of them that have been withheld for further scrutiny and investigation. So we wouldn't say that this is representative of the entire cohort that wrote the examination this year. However, the figures that you see over there certainly are not encouraging, because we would have expected maybe some performances that would reflect, something better than what we are seeing right now.
We would have expected the performance to have been better than what we're seeing right now. I know you say the examiners are yet to come through with the reports, but comparatively, when we look at all of the subjects, did we see an improvement compared to last year and the previous years?
Well, if you look at on the surface of it, if you look at the percentages that we have put out there, you would realize that all the percentages that we have are lower than the ones that we had last year and maybe even the year before. Yeah, but then again, I would say that this is just about the number of candidates whose results we have been able to process so far. We still have quite a number of them. If you look at the latter part of our press statement, we've indicated clearly that we still have a number of the results that we are looking at, and probably when we are done with the investigations, we will publish those results as well.
And so what? Things are the same, but for the core maths and then social studies, we'll say that it's almost the same in terms of outcome and performance.
Well, if you look at it, I just received the chief examiner's report on mathematics in particular. If you would, I'll take you through the weaknesses that the chief examiners have put out. Now, so there's a summary of candidates' weaknesses. Candidates showed weaknesses in the following. 1, representing mathematical information in a diagram. 2, solving global mathematics-related problems. 3, constructing cumulative frequency table from given data distribution. 4, making deductions from real-life problems. 5, solving application problems in simple interest. 6, translating word problems into mathematical expressions. And then 7, interpreting of results from cumulative frequency curve. So these are the areas of weakness that have been identified by the chief examiners. And so they are asking that teachers should try and make the, students understand and then give them more exercises in these areas, especially where they have to represent data in diagrams and interpreting data from, diagrams and then curves, cumulative frequency curves. Yeah.
But in totality, some will say, what's the problem in terms of the question? Because I'm looking at your statement again, and I see that averagely for 2025, particularly for the core subject, we've seen a decline almost we've actually seen a decline in all the performance ratios since 2022. And so in English language, in 2024, on average 69.52 pass. This year we're seeing 69%. Core maths in particular, where we've seen more than half fail, we've seen the 60 percentile regions over the last 3 years. In English, integrated science rather, last year was at 58.7, this year is at 57.7, and then social studies has dropped from 71.53 to 55.82 as well. Is there a difficulty in terms of maybe the exams was harder this year? I mean, we're trying to wrap our heads around it, even as you mentioned to us that the examiners are explaining why, for instance, in math, there was a problem.
Well, when it comes to these examinations, it is not that WAEC on its own decides which questions they are going to come out with and so on and so forth. We have people who are subject experts who sit with our own subject officers, and together they moderate the questions and they agree that these questions are suitable for the candidates who are going to the examination in any particular year. So it is not as if maybe for this particular year we chose to make the questions overly difficult, but these are questions that have been moderated by the subject experts, including our own officers. And if you look at what the chief examiner has indicated, he says that the standard of the paper compared favorably with that of the previous year. Usually would want to see if the difficulty level in a particular year is way above that of the previous year. But when they came out with their report, they indicated that the standard of the paper compared favorably. In other words, they are just about the same in terms of difficulty level. One of the things I'm trying to put together the chief examiner's reports. I've not received the written report on social studies in particular, but then I'm told that from what the subject officer indicated, they did not go into define this and state this. I've not seen the questions myself anyway, but then he says that there were areas where they had to apply the knowledge that they had, and that was one of the areas where they had some difficulty. So I would say that we would have to diversify. In terms of on the part of the candidates, they should be able to diversify their learning be able to apply the knowledge and not have that straitjacket of, rote learning. They should be able to become critical thinkers and also be able to apply the knowledge that they have.
I see there's some updates on exam malpractice. In terms of what it is that we saw this year, comparing to last year, would you say the prevalence of exam malpractice was higher this year than last year? I'm trying to get to a point.
Well, if you look at the figures, obviously you would see an increase in the number of maybe results that have been cancelled, results that have been withheld. But then also, don't forget that before the examinations began, we had sent a warning that we're going to deploy many more monitors. And so we increased our surveillance across the regions. I would say that the Director General himself was in some of the areas. And in fact, he called us while he was in the field, asking us to go to one area or another. Besides that, we also had people in the some well-meaning Ghanaians, let me describe them that way, who were whistleblowers. So they would indicate, they would call the office. We had lines that they could call. They called the lines and indicated what was happening in areas that they felt was not right. And indeed, when we sent monitors, they discovered that this was what was happening. So our appeal, we held stakeholder engagements across the country and asked for support from the general public. And I believe that the support we received from them largely has enabled us to, apprehend all of these people that we are either prosecuting in court or whose results we have had to cancel.
I asked that question because there are those who are making the argument, wanting to compare whether or not the tightened security around this year's exam, and I mean, no disrespect to anybody in terms of the exams from previous years, but there are those who believe that, look, because things were tighter this year, it made it more difficult for persons to compromise the integrity of the exam, reason why perhaps we're seeing what we're seeing. But from your standpoint at WAEC, is there any credence that can be given to an argument like that?
Well, certainly I would say that there was much more surveillance this year than we had in previous years. First of all, with our engagements across the country, we made a passionate appeal to the general public to assist us to, curb this canker of examination malpractice. I remember very well there was a statement that was made by the education minister that he wasn't going to countenance any form of malpractice on the part of teachers, and that they would deal decisively with anybody who engaged in examination malpractices. So maybe that also helped to a very large extent, because then people were scared. They wanted to maintain their job. Remember that a few teachers have been dismissed from the service because of their involvement in examination malpractices. Now, so when we look at all of these factors, we would say that probably accounted for the candidate's inability to receive external help, and then also, our increased surveillance, we're able to apprehend a lot more people and, cause them to be punished for whatever wrongs that they did.
And again, I'll bring in, because this is something that's done in collaboration with government, I'll ask this question as well, because we're seeking to finances. We know under the previous administration, there was this policy that had been put up where past questions were being purchased from WAEC to be made available to students. Off the top of my head, that policy was not continued this year. And so again, it raises the question in terms of trying to pinpoint to where or why we're seeing things play out the way we have, whether or not that could be a contributory factor as well.
Well, when you talk about past questions, in every school they have past questions in their library, because we would normally pack in excess. If you have about 210 candidates, we'll give you about maybe 220. question papers. So certainly every school will have past questions, and teachers are supposed to have access to them so that they are able to run their candidates through as a way of testing their preparedness for the examination. But, you know, that policy is not a wide policy. It is something that came from the Education Ministry and the Ghana Education Service. So maybe on their part, if they decide to do an analysis of the result vis-a-vis what happened in previous years, and that is if indeed the past questions that they purchased made any difference in the candidate's performance, then, well, they would be in a position to judge and then say, okay, we are probably going to go back to that policy to ensure that our candidates are performing better than, you know, they did, especially in 2025.
We've seen the results for a lot of the core subjects, which is more often than not the most important. But on the elective side, are we seeing similar in terms of the outcome, or there were improvements there comparatively to the core subject?
For now, that would be difficult to answer because the statistics have been provided is just limited to the core subjects only. Maybe later on we can look at the general performance and see, because again, it is not, we have a lot of subject areas, the general arts,
absolutely. I mean,
arts,
general science. So yes, I know that would be difficult to because it's not the same electives that everybody. But I'm just trying to get an understanding where perhaps people are. I mean, the students found it, I wouldn't say easier, but they were able to perform better with their electives as compared to the core subjects. Reason why I'm asking that question, but we do not have that data just as yet. But on the score of exam or practice, I see that in some schools, 185 schools, their results have been withheld for alleged collusion. What's the progress in having these matters determined for the result of those students as well to be released, and all of the other ones where there are asterisks on them?
So the process is a simple one. So when the examiners finish marking and they report that they suspect collusion in one area or another, what happens is that there's a staff committee that will look at the variety. First of all, we have to present these findings to the exams committee of the board, and then they give us a green light to withhold and do further investigation. So as we speak, the committee that is supposed to be looking at these things is doing their work. Every day they sit, even at weekends, they sit and look at the veracity of these allegations. For those where we do not find, anything that is implicating, probably we look at them and say, no, this evidence is not strong enough to warrant any cancellation. We go ahead and release the results. So on a daily basis, wherever they get to, they quickly provide that information for the ICT department that will go ahead and release the results. But where we think that the candidates are culpable, then we provide an opportunity for them to meet with our staff to be given a hearing as to how come they have, those issues brought against them. So as we speak, come Wednesday, from Wednesday to about next week, the end of next week, we are going to have officers across the country to every region where we have these issues, and then the candidates will be invited to come and then, answer or probably tell us their side of the story. And if there's any veracity in whatever it is that they say, well, we'll take a second look at it, and then we'll determine whether they deserve to have their grades or whether we'll have to cancel the results.
Finally, from me, and still early days yet in terms of what's happened during this year's WASSCE, but there will be some reports submitted to government to guide education policy planning going forward, because even on the core maths, you're mentioning areas where teachers are supposed to be paying particular attention to their students going forward. Would that be put into a comprehensive report and submitted?
Well, yes, obviously, we always do that. Every year, once we are done with everything, there's a report that is produced for all the subjects. So we have it on our website, and we also provide copies to all the agencies that matter. so that they would also take a look at it and then ensure that going forward, whoever is supposed to do whatever they need to do, they would do it to ensure that the candidates are performing as expected.
Right then, Mr. Kapi, I'm sure we can leave it here and we'll return to you again to get a bit more. I'm particularly interested in the Chief Examiner's report on what happened with social studies, because I have a copy of the social studies paper here, and if I read bits and pieces of it, Section A, the environment, what 5 useful lessons can an individual learn from Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, theory for personal development? That carried 20 marks. Discuss 5 ways by which expensive funerals retard the development of the Ghanaian society. In what 5 ways has Western formal education transformed the social outlook of the Ghanaian? That's just by way of reading some of the questions, and yet we had over 50% not being able to answer this. I am particularly interested in what the Chief Examiner's report is. But just give us what the Chief Examiner's report was on core maths again before you leave us. What they say and what recommendations they are making to teachers as well.
Well, so they indicate for the strengths of the candidates, they indicated that they were strong in applying the midpoint concept to solve problems. They were able to solve problems on mensuration. They were also able to solve simple problems on average speed, and also finding distance of a line when given 2 points. But then their weaknesses are, one, they were unable to represent mathematical information in a diagram. They were unable to solve global mathematics-related problems. They were weak in constructing cumulative frequency table from given data distribution, making deductions from real-life problems. They were weak in solving application problems in simple interest, translating word problems into mathematical expressions, and then interpreting of results from cumulative frequency curve. So these are the weaknesses that have been indicated by the Chief Examiner for Mathematics.
Mr. Kapi, I appreciate you speaking to us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
That's John Kapi. He is the Director of Communication at the West African Examination Council, speaking to us this morning on the WASSCE results. And we have the social studies question. I was just trying to walk us through it just briefly. And then the math question as well has been put on the platform for our perusal as well. I know there's that's objectives, before there's the main question. I'm unable to download this one. But Helen is still here. Sixes is also here as well. In terms of these questions, I read 3. Let me read the 4th one on Section A just quickly. Identify any 4 shared Ghanaian values. 4A, identify any 4 shared Ghanaian values, and B, in what 4 ways do common values contribute to national cohesion? And so it's I see it's 100 marks. And then there is the B, Section B, governance, politics, and stability. Question 5A, state 4 conflicts that may arise in the exercise of rights and responsibilities. 4B, highlight 4 reasons why rights and freedoms were entrenched in the 1992 Republican Constitution of Ghana. 6A, state 4 economic challenges associated with Ghana's political independence. 6B, outline 4 measures an individual can take to become self-reliant. 7A, distinguish between bilateral and multilateral cooperation. And 7B, discuss 4 areas of cooperation between Ghana and the United Nations. So those are the social studies questions.
Mauna.
Yeah.
How on earth do you fail social studies? You don't know values of Ghanaian values. Even if you were not taught in class, The maths one, me, because I fear maths, I understand.
Very famous.
Oh, I thought you were going to answer the question
No,
for
I'm
us.
not trying to trivialize the issue, but of all the things you can fail, social studies. And you say how many people got Fs?
Let me see.
52.
Social
That was, I think,
52%.
F,
Social,
F,
social.
F,
F.
So they failed.
F for fail.
One.
And this means
No, so
Okay, that
one
one
in
was
every
for
four got
core
F9
subjects.
in social studies, but overall, the percentage
you
of
said
persons.
the performance amongst the core subjects, social studies was the one that got the worst performance.
Yeah, so social
All
studies
the core
recorded
subjects.
a significant dip with 55.82% attaining A1 to C6, which is down sharply from the previous 71.53% the previous year. The subject registered one of the highest failure rates, with 7.38% scoring D7, 9.12% obtaining E8, and 27.50% failing with F9. So more than a quarter of students who do the social studies, they got F9 fail. So more than
terrible.
1 out of every 4 got F4. In fact,
studies.
F9.
I mean, in all humility and with all due respect, with no intention of belittling the subject or trivializing the issue, social studies has always been one of those subjects that if you won't get anything at all, you know that one day you can also write something. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how social studies, core values, the F9 would mean the person didn't answer any question correctly.
Oh, is that F9? Not even one.
But that is the only way you get F9. It means you didn't get any. And this one also had objective.
Yes,
Questions.
Objective.
So
and
the person
then
was
written.
not the what did they call that one? The one that you sing and choose.
Some
no?
kind of cha-cha
And to that one
calculation.
too, it means that one too they didn't score. Can we call for remarking?
You think maybe
No,
you should
'cause
take a
it's-
second look?
It's not understandable. Social studies.
Social studies, please.
I mean, we've always, maths. If you talk about maths right now, I will leave the studio and leave the two of you to do the conversation.
I'll follow shortly.
And you see, funny enough, I think part of the report said English got the best performance.
Yes,
also.
so the English language, 69% of candidates secured between A1 and C6, which is only very slightly lower, some 0.52% lower. So consistently, almost 70% of candidates who sit for English language will get decent grades, A1 to C6. The pass rate is good.
So can we blame social media? There's a lot of English on social media, but when it comes down to learning, so things like the Ghanaian values, the rights of the Constitution, rights enshrined in the Constitution, it is country specific, and because those kinds of discussions are not out there, maybe they are not able to follow. I don't know. I'm just.
Are we not living the Ghanaian values? Do you have to go on social media for somebody to tell you that Ghanaians uphold this value? I don't know.
If you are spending all your time on social media, you are watching the videos on the other app, the one that they'll do live and be on it from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Live streaming.
And say, that one. Live streaming.
Live streaming.
If you are doing that, it means that nobody's talking about values on any of those social
That's
media
right.
platforms.
That's right.
So that's what I'm just thinking that we spend too much time on social media. And maybe going back to another long-standing conversation, a debate, if you like, whether children should be allowed to carry phones, smartphones for that matter, to school.
Are they allowed? They are
not
still allowed now.
They are not allowed. But that conversation has come up.
No,
and the argument then was that they will be able to learn. They will be able to do research on the using
But the
phones
government
and
is
all of
providing
that.
them tablets.
You got,
then what will be the basis
you
of
go to computer lab if you want to do.
What will be the
Not
basis?
for the labs, there are a lot of schools don't have.
I see.
Maybe the
Yeah, but-
other projects having the one Haruna said they are using it to watch porn.
Yes, so they are going to configure. It's a tabs. It's a tablets they are seeking to make available to students.
And they said the students have already started using it to watch porn.
They are yet to.
But those ones, when you configure it, there's limited access to
that is
what
why
you
it
can
has
do.
to be configured.
Yeah.
To tailor it for your learning. You see, so that it will meet your learning needs, not allow you to go wandering about. You download and install all sorts of apps. But this social studies matter, it's disturbing. I mean,
no.
How do you feel social studies? How?
But across the board, we've seen a decline. A decline in terms of performance, right? So here I am looking at grade A1 to C6 over the last 3 years, 2022, 2023, 2024, and you realize that 2025 has recorded a steep, not steep, but a decline of some sort.
Right.
You could call it steep, you could call it whatever you want, but there's been some significant decline. And so if you take English language, for instance, that's the only area where we try to stay at the top, right? So between 2022, 2023, 2024, between A1 to C6, in 2022, for instance, 60%, 60.39% got between those grades. In 2023, that increased to 73.11%. In 2024, it dropped to 69.52. Then this year, we're seeing 69% actually make the mark. Just 69 at the dot per paper, 69. If you go to math, it was 61.39 in 2022, 62.23 in 2023, 66.86 in 2024, and this year we dropped to 48.73. When you look at integrated science, we were at 62.45 passed. Because A1 to C6 is passed. 66.82 in 2023. It looks like 2023 was one of like the best performing years for WASSCE in a while. Then in 2024, it dropped to 58.77 for integrated science. Then this year, we dropped to 57.74. Social studies, we've been in the 70 percentiles, 71.51 in 2022, 76.76 in 2023, and then 71.53 in 2024, and this year we are at 55.82. So across board, the core subject, we've seen nosedives in terms of performance for this year, and that raises quite the concern in terms of the performance of students, particularly for this year's WASSCE. And even though we've gotten the reports for core maths, which is explaining that they were not able to solve world problems, they weren't able to do this and that, not able to find the distance of lines and all of that, problem questions and what have you, it does appear there is quite the decline for this year.
Now, you posed the question to Mr. Kapi about whether there is some correlation between enhanced exam, what is it? Exam.
More practices.
No, enhanced exam supervision.
Right. Right.
Whether there's a correlation between enhanced exam supervision and these declining results. And he made a comment that WAEC has been grateful for some enhanced surveillance, if you will. And that could potentially be an impact, or could have potentially had an impact on the scores that we're seeing. If this is a true reflection of what happens when our young ones don't have the opportunity to cheat, then that provides us with a clear path as to where it is that we are, so that we're not deceiving ourselves. If we are at this level truly, that provides the schools, that provides government, that provides the relevant bodies the tools to then move forward to ensure that we are actually doing better. I would rather this comes to light than we continue to have exam malpractice be the order of the day and we don't actually know what the children know and what they don't know. If this really, and I don't know how we go about finding out whether that connection really exists, whether we can say 1 + 1 = 2, because last year when we had this conversation, the major fear was that, well, then after a while on the international scale, who will value results coming from
Ghana,
our part of the world? Because they say these kids, they've been cheating. If you bring them to your school, they'll come in, and where there's no cheating, they'll come and destroy your track record for you, Poto, because they came with not real results. They came with some cheating results. So that would be, for me, the next step in the conversation, if we're able to make that connection or not.
All right. Let's just hold our horses and get onto the phone line. Dr. Peter Pate-Anti is the Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies. He's joined us as well as we try and understand what it is that we've seen. Doc, I appreciate you speaking to us. And so, a decline across board in all of the core subjects for this year, surely a cause for concern and immediate introspection as to what has happened.
It's difficult for me discussing this because we normally have these discussions, especially when WASSCE release their national averages, and we are forced to give reasons for the performance that have been exhibited by students. And some of us have held the position that to be able to guide and help the ministry and GES take important steps to ensuring that teaching and learning and other things are provided to individual schools so that their performance will appreciate. We need to be very circumspect in ascribing reasons to students' performance, whether there is an improvement or there is a decline. So, I would want to look at this discussion from what gives us the national average. And when we look at what gives us the national average, it is from individuals. Now, if we say that a factor like stringent invigilation is contributing to students not performing well, then we would look at that factor as a variable across all schools, because this happened across schools. If it happened across schools, then we should be able to determine this particular kind of regulation affected most, and which schools were not affected by that. If we are at indiscipline factor, which schools are we talking about? If we are saying that some schools were not able to access, which schools are we talking about? In all, what is that we will need to get down to the individual schools to know which schools are contributing to the dropping of the national, and which schools contribute to the upward movement of the national average. And that is the only way we'll be able to guide the Ministry of Education to devise stringent measures to ensure that schools that are not performing well are brought to that other schools are. And this is the thing that I would be glad to have. I would not be in a rush and factors that are perceived to cause the poor performance of, because I do not have to speak to it, and I have not rigorous assessment of the essence as was carried out.
Doc, our line to you is a bit shaky. It's been breaking. Your submissions have not been as thoroughly clear as I would love, and for our listeners to love as well. I don't know if you could reposition, or we could try calling you again. Hopefully the line is better. But the point you make is that we need to reach a point where we can drill down and get to understand which school is contributing to the decline and which school is contributing to the upward trajectory. That's the point that you're making. But it's curious realizing that we haven't been able to do that all this while, or we do it for every year and we will have to do it again for this year.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, proceed. And if it's not, I'll just come in and then we'll have you phoned again.
So the point is that WAEC will do this individual analysis on a spreadsheet. What we want to go further to do is the ministry identifying these schools and making deliberate policies to ensure that they are brought up, so that after the next we can now do an assessment of whether the interventions worked or not. That would have helped with the discussion. For example, after looking at last year, if we to devise specific measures to identify schools that were pulling the national average down, and we instituted specific measures to ensure that they are assisted, then this year would have gone back to those schools that were assisted with specific interventions and see their performance to know whether these interventions worked or not. That is the kind of analysis and discussion that I would be interested in having. Of course, we can have the general discussion of ascribing reasons to anything. That is why your co-host was talking about whether we can really establish a correlation between students' invigilating and performance. Because these are things that should be done scientifically. Remember, we are dealing with education, and one mistake can destroy the future of individuals. So we don't just get up and then ascribe reasons to students' performance simply because we feel that that is what is the situation. And if we do that, we are not helping the Ministry of Education, which is in charge of policy implementation, policy development, to get the actual rationale, the actual reasons why students continue to perform poorly. As you gave the 4 years, you indicated a decline. What is really happening? That to the extent that this year we are seeing such a dip in core mathematics. We need to do this and do it well to help the individual kids in the senior high schools so that they don't continue to suffer from the system failure. And that is what I am interested in. So, yeah, we let the politicians continue to score their 2 political points with whatever reasons that they might want to put out. But can we step back a little and go and look at the individual school performances and see what we can do as a country to support these schools that consistently score below 20%? The past week, consistently score below 20%. Some of them do 5%. And find ways that we can support these individual schools within the year as they prepared for WASSCE next year. And then next year, we can come and have a discussion that 20 schools were giving this kind of intervention. Core mathematics teachers were trained. The sample core mathematics questions were discussed with students. Chief examiner reports were supplied and then discussed with students. Enhanced resources were provided. And these things were given to these schools. After that, this is the result that we had for core maths after that last year's challenge. This is what changes educational system. This is what helps my kid in the senior high school who is likely to face the same challenge as they prepare to write WASSCE next year.
And I appreciate this perspective that you're bringing on board, the fact that we have to drill down, identify, and apply the solutions head on to them. What will be your expectation of the ministry now that you're making this proposal? If it's not come to the attention, I suppose you're wanting to have this brought to the attention for some action to be taken in that regard.
Exactly. The ministry would have the spreadsheets for individual schools. These spreadsheets would even go down to the district level. What I expect the ministry to do is to sit down and identify these schools that drop the national average. And it's very, very important. If they want to improve national average, look at the individual schools. And then design measures, go to the schools and find out what challenges that they have. For all you know, some of the schools scored 0% in core mathematics. It means nobody passed. Some of them will have 10%, 5%. All those schools need to be identified, and I'm using core math as an example because that is what we are all talking about. All those schools will need to be identified. Identify all the core math teachers in these schools, and then make sure you provide them with the requisite professional development or training for a period. Let's say 2 days kind of training, then continue to monitor teaching and learning in those schools for the period for WASSCE. And after that, when WASSCE is released around this time, we can now ascertain whether intervention worked or not. And then what are the reasons why this didn't work and what are the reasons why it worked. We can also identify the schools that performed well, scored about 60%, learn from what they are doing right, and then ensure that there's sustainability in their practices, so that at the end of next year, their performance will not give, but will improve. This is the kind of thing that educational policymakers will be thinking about in any system. And I pray that our system will adopt this.
And I come back to that point because the government has mentioned or reiterated a number of times that they want to move some schools, category C schools, to B, and make some B schools as well, turn them into an A school. The focus has been largely on infrastructure and availability of resources in terms of the physicals that you can touch. This point you make about drilling down, I suppose, should now become front and center in the bid to make these schools A and B schools, because off the top of my head, and if we were to go through the numbers, we realize that a lot of the pass rate in terms of the core subject will emanate from the category A schools. And so this should also be a focus of the government in terms of changing a number of these schools from the categories that they are, which is not making them a viable option for students when it comes to school placement, and changing that narrative as well, not just on infrastructure.
Exactly. You see, I perfectly agree with you. We tend to give paracetamol to anybody that walked into the hospital and complained that he's sick. That is what we do in our educational system. We love the wholesale measures. We want to do everything in the wholesale so that if we are saying we are supplying books, every school is getting books. That does not address the challenges. So yes, we need to move some category C schools to B. What are the variables that we are looking at to identify that out of the over 300 category C schools, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 schools are the ones that we really need to support in the interim, because we cannot do for all. We will need to look at some of these things. We should not continue to do this wholesale measure of intervention in our schools. No, we will need to now stick to what the data is saying and then devise means to ensure that we are sticking to the real needs of the children in our schools. So you provide them with the resources, and then in some schools, after the resources, you will need to give some sort of support to the teachers. You get me? In other schools, after you provide them with the resources, you will need to provide them, you will need to do additional, kind of supervision and monitoring in some schools. These are specific measures that you need to do if you want to be deliberate about improving the educational outcomes in this country. And I agree with you that the starting point is the decision to move some C schools to B. We can use this as a measure and then move on from there.
Dr. Partey, I appreciate you speaking to us, and I look forward to this being done by the Education Ministry, and hopefully we can come back to a conversation and say, okay, this year we drill down, we identify the schools, and we've been able to make some intervention, and this is the progress we've made as a result of that. I can say on both our parts, we'll be seeking to draw the ministry's attention to this and have this done to the betterment of our students as well.
Thank you very much for having me. And I think that Media General can even lead the charge. Media General can identify some of these schools, apply to WASSCE, and let us know some of the schools that scored very core mathematics. And as part of your what do you call it? Social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, adopt one or two schools and then get the experts to go and assess them. And next year we can look at the impact, and we use that as a yardstick to project to the ministry that this is what we can do to change the lives of individual students in individual schools.
I appreciate you. That's Dr. Peter Partey, and he's the Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies, speaking to us this morning as well. Helen, quite the solution in terms of how we can work around this.
I like that at the end, that tip, or should I say advice or suggestion from Mr. Anti. But more importantly, I did really appreciate his commentary on what the real essence of this data is and what an opportunity it provides us beyond the politics to strengthen our educational system. And like he says, we're talking about education here, so it should be done with some type of formula. And I heard him comment on my comments about correlation between enhanced exam supervision vis-a-vis the results. And he says we have to go and use science, use data.
It can't be feelings.
It can't be feelings. Yeah. I feel as though, because at the root of this issue is the future of this country, the type of human resource that we're churning out. This morning, you had a small tete-a-tete with one of our callers. He alleges that the president is failing the students, and that's where the conversation becomes reduced to. But this is about the future. Fellow Ghanaians, you can have that banter on the lighter side, but what is the data pointing us to? If these are the figures that we have, what do we do to strengthen our kids' abilities in mathematics, in social studies? Can we have these conversations at our home? This might inform...
And what is the teaching methods?
What are the teaching methods? Can this inform maybe our next MG dialogue, our monthly dialogue, to actually open up the conversation? Let's open our minds beyond some of the banter that we reduce these very important conversations to. Trust me, the international world, they are looking at this. Maybe you are looking for a visa. Sometimes this is the intel that they pick. Hey, these kids all want to come to our universities with what credentials? Year on year, our aim is to get better. So I really appreciate the thoughts of Mr. Anti on this one, saying that let's use mathematics, let's use science, let's use formula, data, and come out with something positive for the future of this country.
But I wasn't surprised about that comment. The caller who went full-blown politics on it. What surprised me was why Mawina was surprised. Otherwise, his comment...
Mawina was not surprised.
I wasn't surprised. I was just seeking to stop. I mean, and I always say, look, I don't gag anybody when you want to share your thoughts. You are free to share your thoughts. But when you enter the realms...
play within our rules.
Yes, when you enter within the realms of accusations which are not... I mean... It should not be said anywhere, whether under the previous administration, under this administration, under the next administration, and the president has failed students.
I mean,
what's the basis upon? What's the basis upon which you make such a statement?
Back to the more serious conversation. The other thing I thought about was how at the district level, students can that supervision that you spoke about, and whatever policy formulation and implementation it is, should actually come from the district level. We have locally tailored solutions for the local concerns. And some of the areas, the students probably spend all their time at the farm. Because they have to help out at farm, and they have to ensure that the daily bread is found or made before they then think about their books. And in instances like that, you see that the book then becomes secondary. And some of them, don't even have the time to study until it is the exam time. So if that is the peculiar problem in that particular district, how is the district education director fashioning out policies to deal with the problem that is peculiar to them? In some of the districts, it could be a lack of teacher. Maybe the schools don't have mathematics teachers.
Right.
How is the district director for that particular area fashioning out policies that will directly inform the specific need of the students? And I know that where I come from, we lack teachers. A lot of the times you don't have the teachers.
For different subjects.
For different subjects and for different schools. So a student, I wouldn't be surprised if a student goes to school for all the 3 years that he spends in senior high school, up to the time that he's writing the exam. He has seen the teacher for, say, maybe only 3 times in the classroom, which would then become a conversation at that local level. So you should find the chief executive, the director of education, circuit supervisors coming together, and PTAs coming together to deal with the problem. And in some of the cases too, it is teacher absenteeism.
Right.
They have the teachers, but they are not going to school because nobody is monitoring them. Or they feel that, oh, but I'm in a village, if I don't go, who knows? Especially in areas where they say when it rains, the teacher cannot go to school. Maybe because the teacher has to cross a stream, the teacher is unable to, and so he doesn't go. Some too, maybe they just decide that they won't go to school for no reason. They are just lazying about. Others too, we hear they go into some communities and go and get into farming and forget about the schools, that the reason why they are in the communities that. So I think we have to also begin to drill down to the district levels. Let's find local solutions for local problems, so that we don't sit at the top and say that generally we have a teacher a lack of teacher problem, and then we push teachers to the schools. Meanwhile, in some particular school, their problem really may not be a lack of a teacher.
I like that you said that in some communities it might be the economic situation of the day, so that daddy needs all the hands he can get to go into the farm. The teachers are in this classroom, the students are on the farm.
On the farm, you see. And in some and in fact, all that I have said is based on comments that we have heard people made, experiences people have shared from different parts of the country. And in some areas too, you find that the students are in the class, but the teachers are loitering. They are wasting away, for lack of a better expression. So I think that the regional directors of education, the district directors of education, the coming up or down to the Director General, they would then have to look at what the local problems are and then deal with. As for the general issues of unavailability of textbooks or inadequacy of textbooks, lack of classrooms, furniture, people are having to lie on their stomachs and learn and write. Those are general issues that we can deal with. But even in the absence of direct solutions to those general issues, what are the local conditions and how can we deal with the local conditions, remove the local barriers so that the kids would have some smooth learning.
I'll come back to us for us to wrap up, because we had an earlier challenge with this machine in doing our commercials, but I think that's been rectified. So we have to just clear our spot of commercials, and then we'll return and then try and wrap up on this particular subject.
92.7 3 FM. 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 92.73 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 FM. 92.
Your pocket via receiving money through CBG. So receiving money from your loved ones abroad should never be complicated, right? With CBG Money Transfer Services, you enjoy a fast, secure, and convenient way to access your funds abroad. Visit any CBG branch nationwide to receive transfers from leading global partners including Ease Remit, Western Union, MoneyGram, RIA, UnityLink, PayAngel, Transfast, TapTapSend, TerraPay, and Thunes. All you need is your valid national ID, phone number, and transfer reference number. and will ensure a smooth, stress-free experience from start to finish. For enquiries, call us 0302 216 000 0302 216